Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
And you know what? John has put me into a new mode that I'm no longer going to say, well, you know what? I'll check into that, or I'll take a look at that.
I'll have to check it out.
Okay.
That's what you say to your grandma when she's like, I saw a story about how the kids are using that Chinese technology, but the dangers of it. Oh, thanks, Grandma. I'll have to check that out.
Okay, hold on a minute. I'm going to plug my phone in. Hold on.
Tell me what
Okay, here we go.
you meant by assault weapons.
Just to clarify there, I was local counsel. Our Supreme...
But you wrote the brief. Tell me what you meant by assault weapons.
Senator Kennedy, actually, I did not write the brief. The brief was written by...
You signed the brief, though, didn't you?
Correct. I signed the brief.
You sign a brief, you're testifying to the court that everything in it is true, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So
they're your words in terms of the court, right?
Well, You're correct, Senator Kennedy.
Okay.
I would never
Tell
sign...
me what you meant by assault weapons.
So I am not a gun expert, and at the time, that brief, I think, was about 10 years...
You were giving the court advice about, say, ban assault weapons. Tell me what you wanted to ban.
I don't remember the exact definition of assault weapons in the ordinance that was at issue.
You said, quote, assault.
He ties her in knots. See what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah. And that was like, 2 years ago, Josh Hawley had a professor from Berkeley came on, and he wanted to know what she meant by people who can get pregnant. And he's like, by that you mean women, right? And she goes, well, cisgender females can get pregnant. And then that's when the woman, if you recall, Brad, accused him of being transphobic and said that transphobic kids will die because of transphobia, like Josh Hawley. And it was the best I've seen ever from Josh Hawley.
Well, I mean, this whole crazy thing where everything is being re-termed or renamed or re-imaged, or I just don't get it. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, Brad, you still call the biggest bedroom in your house the master bedroom, but you know what? You still call Washington University, don't you, Brad?
Well, there's a perfect example of there's whole industries where if you take that reasoning, exactly what you said. In the car industry, you have a master cylinder, okay?
Yeah.
And in the security industry, you have a master key, which essentially opens all the doors. It's like you have a grandmaster and things like that. I mean, that's even worse, a grandmaster. Once again, I mean, somebody who came up with these terms didn't sit, 150, 200 years ago thinking, well, what can we do to insult people and use it in the,
Well, and now you and I like to pick on the woke left, but also there's other groups of people who do this. I had a coworker who came to us at Monsanto from SSM. Well, she had another job in between, but she formerly worked in communications at SSM. And they took, they had some, let's just say, management that was still quite very peaceful Catholic, I guess was, I don't know, the best way to say it. And she told us that at SSM, you could not tell someone to send you bullet points.
Yeah, you told me that. Yeah.
You could not say, shoot me an email.
Right.
You could not use anything with violence.
Yeah, shoot me an email. Okay, changing topics. I'm going to say something which bothers me, okay? We had this horrendous situation happen in Baltimore where the cargo ship, the container ship, hit the pier and knocked the entire bridge down. First off, I'm thinking to myself, if you looked at the way that bridge was built and there was no protective, area around the bridge supports, I mean, to me, it's like, okay, how come that never happened earlier? Because of the fact that how many times do we have stories here in St. Louis where a barge hits one of the bridge supports for the Poplar Street Bridge or the Eads Bridge or stuff like that? All you have to do is just go back and search the Post-Dispatch. You'll find several articles on that, okay? But here's my point. My point is, it's like 9/11, okay? The British, when they had the attacks on the subways and the double-decker buses, they dusted themselves off one day and they went back to work the next day. Okay? In the United States, the country came to a halt. We grounded all the airplanes, schools closed, malls closed, everybody, people were sent home all across the country, okay? I say the terrorists won. Now, I'm talking about apples and oranges because obviously, until they prove differently, there's no terrorism involved in this Maryland, the Baltimore thing. But my point being is, instead of having all the talking head politicians for the past 3 days on TV and Pete Buttigieg, it's like, don't we have like a construction strike force where, and I know there's guys out there like this. Matter of fact, I can tell you one guy right here in the St. Louis area that I know personally, that if I said to him, hey, if you got the phone call, how quick would it be for you to get down to Baltimore? And he says, I could be there by noon today. And this guy could direct pulling the infrastructure, all the what's left of this bridge out of the river. But technically it's not a river. It's actually part of Chesapeake Bay. It's a harbor, whatever you want to call it. But they call it a Patasco or something river.
Something like that.
My point being is, they're saying, oh, my God, it's going to kill the economy because this is one of the busiest ports and all cars.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's get, and once again, how many guys in the military could go in and you send in the SEALs? Because if part of what they do is I think it's called, when they go through SEAL training, it's called subs or bus or something like that. It's essentially underwater, combat where they attach, mines and things like that on the side of ships and stuff like that. Let's just get down to business. And, once again, how long would it take to get some barges in there with some cranes on them, and get some guys in there and cut that thing up and at least cut a path where the boats could go in and out of the harbor? No, we've got it.
Yeah. So what's have you followed that? Like, what is happening with that right now? I mean, surely that's happening.
Nothing right now. The harbor is closed because they can't get, because when the span went down, the way it works is that the span that is tall enough for the entire span, there's 2 big spans of the bridge that are tall enough. I believe the clearance is 185 feet. They can't, the approaches on both sides are still there, but they're not tall enough to get these ships underneath it, and they're too close to the shoreline, so they can't go under that. They have to go through the channel where the bridge is, and the bridge is still in pieces. It's laying down there, and the bridge essentially is blocking the channel because the boats can't clear the that part. And I'm going like, okay, and we're talking about yesterday there was a report that the government's going to give $80 million to Baltimore and blah 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 blah. And I'm going like, okay. Once upon a time, and I always come back to this, and matter of fact, this was one of my things I said all the time when I was on the air with Shelley Barr, the Empire State Building, okay? Do you ever hear me talk about this before?
No, I've never heard you tell the story.
From the excavation of the site in New York City to the topping out of the Empire State Building, guess how long it took?
I do remember you saying this, and it was super fast.
13 months, okay?
Incredible.
They built the world's tallest building in 13 months, okay, from start to finish. Now, once again, where have we gotten to the point where, and I think a lot of this has to do with regulations and red tape.
Yes, I was just going to say,
we can't do this.
I'm sure that all the equipment was ADA compliant, that those workers. Remember those pictures from the Empire State Building, though? You had everybody like sitting up on a ledge, like just eating out of their lunch pail.
Right. Well, once again, the thing nowadays is, I kid about this because of the fact that I do have several fall protection harnesses because of the fact that I don't do a lot of that anymore, but I did do tower work and stuff like that, and I did stuff on cranes and things like that. I've got all the OSHA compliant stuff. Okay, back in the day, these guys were walking around on I-beams, hundreds of feet in the air, no fall protection. And what's interesting is nowadays, everybody's got the protective shoe. They got the Red Wing shoes and they got the steel-toed shoes. These guys are walking around in street shoes,
Yeah, of course.
Right. They have no fall protection gear. They have no hard hats or anything like that. And it's to the point where it's like, okay, so we've gotten to a point where we have hamstrung a lot of industries. And once again, I'm not saying that we should, have guys. I mean, here's a perfect example. Do you know what you don't see at construction sites anymore for the most part?
Don't know. Porta potties.
Ladders.
Oh, why not?
Because guys fall off of ladders. So what you see at construction sites now, in the old days, you'd see ladders and scaffolding. Okay, for the most part, you don't see ladders and scaffolding anymore. What you do see is you see the man lift. You see,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Because the guys wear their protection harness, their fall protection harness. They've got a lanyard that they've got their what they call the dorsal D ring. Am I a nerd or what? It's called a dorsal D ring. It's on the back. It's on your back. It's up like between your shoulder blades.
Hence the dorsal.
Right. It's got a big round hook on it, a big round eyelet. You stick your lanyard, one end on that, one end on the. There's a secure point in the bucket or the basket, whatever you want to call the man lift. And so if for some crazy reason you'd lean over too far when you're on the man lift and you're up 30, 40, 50 feet in the air, you would fall, but you wouldn't hit the ground. You would be essentially hanging there. Now, here's you want to get really nerdy about this?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I don't remember the exact term, but here's the interesting part of this. Is that, let's say you are a construction worker and you're working 40, 50, 60 feet up, and you are tied off with a fall protection, full body harness, goes around your shoulder, your waist, goes between your legs, the whole bit. If you do fall, and if you are hanging there, you can die from hanging there.
Because
it cuts off the circulation in your legs, because the harness, what happens is you're going down into your harness, and the harness is between your legs in your groinal region, and essentially what it does is ultimately if you stay there long enough, you die because your circulation is stopped, because the blood will not flow from your heart down into your legs, and essentially you die. And
wow. Now, by the way, and I hate to interrupt here, Brad, but the construction worker from the Village People says that a lot of times if you constrict blood flow, it will not get down to your legs. But he did just text me and say he likes the part where you talked about entering from the back, Brad. Go ahead.
John.
But go on more about the blood flow, Brad.
Is this someone we know who says these guys still use ladders? Did you get that text?
I don't know, but the world heard it because as a frequent listener pointed out, is that your phone or Brad's that keeps going off? And I said, no, it's Brad's. Brad keeps his ringer on during the show. I don't know. Is it a number that you recognize?
It's a person. I won't mention their name, but for the most part, Brad gets into Nerdville. I'm telling you. Okay, I have to do one thing, and you know what? I already know what's going to happen, but I have to go through the motions, and I'm going to do it right now. This is self-serving, John. Will you give me just a little bit of self-serving time this
Brad.
morning?
This is your and Egbert station.
No, I don't know whose stations it is. Maybe it should be the National Public Radio station. Maybe it should be God Squad. Hold on a minute. Number 2. Okay, we're going to call this number. Okay, see what happens here. Any money, there will be no answer. I'll be willing to bet money on that. See, no answer. A couple more rings and I'll go to voicemail.
Amanda Turnbull
is not available.
Amanda, happy birthday. It's your dad. I love you. Bye. She won't answer the phone. It's my daughter's birthday today.
Oh, Brad, that's super sweet.
Yeah, and she is, matter of fact, my nickname for my daughter is sometimes I will still call her Amanda Wormgirl, AWG. That's how I call her. Sometimes I say AWG or Amanda Wormgirl. Why do I call her Amanda Wormgirl? Because when she was a little girl, and I'm not kidding when I say this, she hated me. I mean, literally hated me. I can still tell you the stories like indelibly etched in my mind when I would come home in the evening and I would open the front door and I could still see my daughter running across the kitchen floor so where she could see down the hall, because the kitchen was like, if you walk straight into our house, you'd walk straight past the stairs on the left, stairs on the right, bathroom on the left, and straight into the kitchen. She would be in the family room, and she would hear the door open. She would run into the kitchen, and she would see me, and there would be a smile on her face until she saw me, and then she would go, "Ooh, I hate you," and she'd run away. Amanda Wormgirl, when I picked her up as a little girl, she would squirm like a worm. So I could not hold her, and she would squirm to the point where she was trying to get away from me, and to the point where if I picked her up like that too often, I was afraid that she was squirming and she would fall out of my arms, and I would be.
Brad.
So Amanda Wormgirl, the woman, now she's a mature woman. She's an attorney. Did I ever tell you that? She's an attorney?
Yeah, you told us that before.
And even though she still hates me, I love her. So,
and you know she doesn't. And you know she doesn't hate you.
Amanda Wormgirl. Okay. We are done for the day. It's interesting because of the fact that I got an email yesterday that Armstrong and Getty, who come on after us, they're taking a long weekend. They are going to be best of today between 8 and noon, and they're going to be best of today between 8 and noon on Monday. So
yeah, I can imagine. Hey, you know what? Maybe they have a little school teacher in them, Brad. And you know what? If you haven't, I got to say, I didn't listen to their show yesterday, but you know what, Brad? I'm going to have to check that out.
What's that?
I'm just going to have to check it out. I'm going to have to check that out.
John's making all these references to things we talked about. You know, we need to do what I told you, what Neil Bortz used to do. He had a page on his website which essentially was his glossary. You'd go to...
Yeah, what if I've already started it, Brad, with the top 75 lessons from the first 75 editions of the Brad and John Show?
Well, he would just define things like...
Blow right past it. Go ahead, Brad.
He would just define things by like I told you, like AMF, things like that, and he would use these terms on the show, and if you weren't a regular listener, you goes, what's he talking about? And he would tell you. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to my website, Neil Bortz, and look. And
you'll look it up. And Brad, I wish you the best of luck in getting that construction vest away from, to use your word, groinal area. You think is groinal a real word, or is that kind of like a Brad Hildebrand word?
It's a Brad Hildebrand word, it's not a construction vest. It's a full body safety harness. It's fall protection.
Yeah, that's what they're calling it today in the updated Village People catalog, right, Brad?
Macho man. Okay.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?